Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa Rabbil Alameen. Raqibatun lil mustaqim. Wala wahwana illa ala dalimeen. Muhammadan huwa Sayyidina Mekbubana kana Sayyidina Mursaleen. Salawatu Allah Ta'ala wa salamuhu alayhi. Wa minna NBI wa Mursaleen. Salawatu Allah Ta'ala wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh lil ikhwani ikhwati fi din. Assalamu ala mani teba huda lil ikhwani ikhwati fi Afrika, Europa, America wa Caribbean wa kulli makan. Innani ote subhanahu wa ta'ala amtanani wa shokari. My dear brothers and sisters, Anjarama to my Full Bay community and to my African brothers and sisters, wherever you may be. And I'm going to be covering a topic which has manifested itself approximately 3 weeks now. And the agreement that was signed by the 3 Sahel states and the significance of that, of the agreement between Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And this is an important defense pact. But as we have gone along here, we have found it is flawed, as just about everything in Africa seems to be. We seem to be going on the right track, but then we go right back and regress back to going to colonial powers. And this is no different in this situation, because the pact that these 3 brothers have signed is a powerful pact. We can't take it lightly. It brings them under close scrutiny and danger from the Tuba forces, because the Tuba forces of Europe and America, in particular, Western Europe, do not want to see Black men getting together and backing each other's play. They don't want to see that. For 400 years, they've been accustomed. We say, well, I'm not going to say 400 years. I say the last 200 years, they have been accustomed to governing us, ruling us, telling us what to do, what not to do, and have treated us essentially as children. This now is starting to manifest itself in another aspect. We have African leaders who are stepping before the UN now and talking against the West and against democracy, and tired of being treated as children. We're starting to see our African brothers, our leaders, our younger brothers coming forward, brilliant, educated, Pan-Africanists, believe in our continent, believe that we should be independent of them, not saying that we hate the Tubab or we hate the Tubab Europeans. No, that's not what is being said here. We're saying we want to be equal partners with all who come here. But we know this is not the case. And so our African young leaders now are coming forward. And this is the first time I've seen at the UN where we had a whole host of young African leaders coming forward and talking against this lopsided union between the Africans and the Americans, the Europeans, and the UN. So we're starting to see things happen on the continent that's developing very quickly. And so we see our brother here, president of Guinea, Conakry, and he had a beautiful speech where he denounced the democracy and whatnot. And I'll get into a little bit of that here shortly, inshallah ta'ala. But we need speeches like this because This is the first sign of independence, real independence, not the independence that the African continent got from the Europeans, but now winging past them from their loans and their meddling and their indirect and direct rule of the continent. But as you always heard me say, West Africa is the leader on this continent in many facets. In many facets, brothers and sisters. There's a whole range of concentration here in West Africa and the Sahel region because there's a lot to it. As you heard me say, when the Sahel is sick, Africa is sick. When there's turmoil, it spreads from the Sahel and from West Africa throughout the continent. Irrespective if it's an Islamic insurrection, or if it's another type of insurrection of some sort, it begins to spread through the continent like a cancer, so to speak. So we're starting to see this, brothers and sisters, and it gives me some hope when I see young African leaders now who are not kissing the boots of the Europeans and the Americans. So I'm kind of happy to see this. And I had saw some of the speeches, heard some of the speeches, excuse me, on the UN, at the UN here recently. And I was impressed with many of our leaders who came forward. And what I like best is most of our leaders came like this, dressed in our clothing. Yes, brothers and sisters, in our clothing, not as pseudo tubab, with the tubab suits when we don't look good. We look good in our kufis. We look good in our agbadas. This is how we look good because this is our clothing. It's made for us because it fits our body contour. It highlights our complexion. So when we show up, even in the Western confines, we're not tubab. We're Africans. We should wear our clothing. We should never be ashamed to wear our clothing, especially in an international setting. Some of our young African leaders are now doing that. Those in my generation, the leaders in my generation, have forgotten that. They step away from the continent, they go into other places, and they dress like pseudo tubab. And we're starting to see our brothers, especially from West Africa, coming in with their agbadas and kufi. And I'm proud of them to see them do that because this is the first stages of independence to tell the world that we're not children, that we have our own clothing, that we have our own style of clothing, and that we are not ashamed of that. So let's get started here. The agreement between Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali is the first of its kind on the continent since the remaining Islamic emirates of the Masina, Omar Dal, and Usman Den Fodio. Brothers and sisters, this is the significance of it. We've had agreements everywhere, but you notice even ECOWAS, all of them are beholden to and have to get tacit authority from who? The Americans or the French or the British or a combination of thereof. Here, this is a union between the brothers. And the brothers are speaking. They say, I'm going to back my brother. We haven't seen this since the 1800s when we had the Islamic emirates and the sultanates. That we have brothers coming together to back the play of the other brother. Irrespective if he's Fulani or Hausa or Mendinka or Mende. And the galvanizing factor, again, is Islam. It represents the first time in modern history a union that is not governed, controlled, and ruled by the Tubab powers. Now, hear me out real well. You heard me talk about this issue here, those who've been following me months back, when I said that in time, a Islamic emirate will develop. I don't know if you guys remember when I talked about that I said it's coming because of the way things are. And I showed you I showed you Niger and Burkina Faso will be part of that. And this in the green, to your right is Mali, and going down to your left is Burkina Faso. I don't know if many of you remember that who viewed my tapes and heard my speech on this. I talked about this issue. So this is now in modern times a union that is done by the brothers, for the brothers, back in the play of the brothers. But it's setting the stage for a real Islamic governance. I believe it's coming quicker than perhaps I was thinking. Perhaps by 2025, it could happen, because we've had scholars say this. And I'm kind of a firm believer that we should move them even quicker than that. Because when our young brothers begin to understand, when they go to pray to Subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they ask for his guidance, he's going to tell them. I'm hoping Subhanahu wa ta'ala does this, but I know this is what he wants, because he wants to see the union of the Muslims, and he wants to see the Africans governed by Africans. And he knows that his governance, his sunnah, his sharia is best served by us, Africans, African Muslims. So I believe this is coming, setting the stage for real Islamic governance to come. Because, brothers and sisters, we've had decades of democratic ways and means. This young brother said it best. He said it doesn't work. He said it's not for us. He said, yes, it's for the Tubop. He didn't say it like that, but he said it's for the West. Yes, it works for you, but it doesn't work for us. Finally, we start to get Africans to come forward and tell the truth. Instead of like the ECOWAS, who keeps talking about, like the president of Nigeria said, he wants to spread democracy through all of Africa. This young brother said it doesn't work. And we've had many of our West African scholars who are saying the same thing. It just doesn't work. It's not for the Africans, especially if you are Muslim, because we're guided by the Sharia Allah and by the Quran Kareem and by the Sunnah of our Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. Oh, excuse me, brothers and sisters. My computer here just went out here. What happened here? Wait a minute here. What's going on here? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. However, this new union isn't Islamic. This is the problem, brothers and sisters. Okay. We have to give credit where credit is due. The brothers have got together, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and said, we're going to back one another. But this bloc is not Islamic. They're Muslims, but it's not Islamic. This is the problem. Even though they are ruled by Muslims, it is still motivated to fight. This is the other issue, that why it will fail. Because as long as it's deciding to fight their African brothers, instead of going to the table to negotiate with them, again, go to the table. You, Niger, you, Burkina Faso, are all these brilliant young leaders. You go to the table. You bring the Fulani herdsmen there. You bring the Messina group there. You bring the Ansar Deen. You bring the Azawad groups, and all of them, bring them to the table, and you bring the West African scholars and intellectuals at the meeting to mediate. And we have them everywhere. Fulani, Mandinka, Mende, Wolof. We have many different scholars. Hausa, you name it. We have all kinds of scholars and intellectuals running around through West Africa. They should be sitting at the table mediating between the brothers, and it can work. It is still motivated to fight the Fulani herdsmen. this is one of the galvanizing things that I do not like. The union is yes, they're going to back each other's play from aggression from outside, but still it has not solved the problem of dealing with the Fulani herdsmen and the Messina group and the other Mujahideen groups espousing Sharia law. Instead of bringing them to the table, they still want to fight them. They pose a direct threat to the AU and ECOWAS, who are ruled by Tubab Western powers. This new defense pact by Mali and by Burkina Faso and Niger presents a direct offense and affront to the ECOWAS. And ECOWAS see this and they don't know how to deal with it because they can't control it. Because why? When the ECOWAS personnel talk, it's always a Tubab next to them or standing behind them, whispering in the ear of our African leaders, West African leaders, and telling them what to say and what to do. These three brothers from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger says, no. We want to talk to our African brothers, but we don't need the Tubab standing in between us. They're not Muslims. They're not West African. They're not from the Sahel. And you heard me say, I'm a stickler about this. You heard me say this, and I'm adamant about this. The ISIS, Islamic State of West Africa, that's what they call themselves now, the AQ, Al-Qaeda, all these other groups that come out from Jazeera Arab, they have no business being here in West Africa. Because what does their aim and their goals have to do with my brothers from the Fulani herdsmen? There's no connection between us. There's nothing. Yes, Islam, yes, true. But we have different motives. We have motives where we have waterways. We want our grazing rights. We're not talking about going into bombing and killing all over the place. Yes, we have Fulani herdsmen doing it in retaliation for what has happened to them. But we don't have the alliance with the AQ and ISIS. They have no damn business being in our region. And the same way with the Tubab. Yes, the Tubab can come. He can trade with us. Yes, if he wants to have his missions and with the permission of our African leaders, he can come. But not to rule over us, not to indirectly rule over us, not to come to take our resources free and then put puppets in power and then stage coups to overthrow our strong brothers. We don't want that anymore. And we have African leaders now coming forward telling the UN and the Tubab, we don't want this type of activity from you anymore. So they in turn want to control its natural resources and selling them at a going rate. The axis that's developed between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they want to take their resources, perhaps together, and sell it on their market rates. Brothers and sisters, do you know how much money that will garner for those three particular countries? It will put us into the rich and famous quickly. Because when they start to sell the uranium and the diamonds and the gold, in particular these three, do you know you're talking about near $1 trillion US. We should not be seeing pictures anymore in Niger of people drinking off the street or eating out of trash. We shouldn't be seeing that. We should be seeing beautiful modern cities, but Islamically controlled, and our brothers and sisters are happy and well fed. We deserve it. This is our minerals. We deserve these rights. We deserve these rights. This is our continent. These are our minerals. We have the right to sell them. No different than the Americans. The Americans have their assets. Do you see the Americans giving anything to us? When they give something to us, it's a loan. And the loans are 10, 15, 20%. But when we give to them, they come and they just take our resources and don't give us nothing for it. See, so our three brothers from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso is turned around and says, look, we want to control our natural resources. That's our right. This is our continent. The Sahel is ours. It's not theirs. We have the right to take those resources and sell it at market value. The Americans and the The Americans and the EU won't have any of this demand. The new bloc, they don't like this because they're starting to see, again, it's just like the United States. One thing that the Tubab and the Tubab police, the government, and the infrastructure, when they see brothers getting together, they don't like it. They have fear. That's why the police kill, because the police have fear, natural fear for a black man. This is no different when the Tubab comes over to the Sahel and to West Africa. They see they've been able to control especially my generation, our leaders. They've been able to control them, tell them what to do, and tell them to be flunkies. They say, yes, sir, boss. When they say, well, how high you want me to jump, the Tubab tells them and they do it. Now our younger brothers are saying no to this. When they come to them and say, look, I'm so-and-so from the United States. I'm a Tubab. Your ancestors, they said, Sima ta'a, means you listen and obey what I say. They say, no, I'm not doing that. So they want to destroy, and they have, according to, I know where Burkina Faso has already made the comment, the leader said, no more of that. I'm going to sell it at market value. He's raised the prices tremendously. This is why now there's a worldwide plot from the Tubab, not the Russians, but the other Tubabs to kill our African leaders who are now stepping forward and want to sell the resources and to want to govern without their interference. However, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali are allowing American military to stay. This, brothers and sisters, why I told you it's flawed. You got the head of the beast, the head of the evil, head of who's killing more human beings than anyone on the face of earth combined. And you allow him to keep their military presence in your land when we've exposed, the world has exposed their dirty plots here in Africa to overthrow African governments, and they have been instrumental in doing so. And you're going to keep them around? This is a disastrous situation. It's only a matter of time before they try to overthrow or kill the leaders because they're right there. So, and here's the worst part of this, brothers and sisters. These brilliant African leaders are allowing the Americans in particular and some other Europeans to stay there in their countries. Who they're going to kill? Huh? Of the Tubab? No. The only one who's willing to kill another Tubab is the Russians. The Russians are willing to kill anybody if they're paid enough. And if they have a security agreement, they don't care who invades the land, they're going to fight them. But the Americans are staging their plots and everything against the Fulani herdsmen, the Fulani Masina group, the Ansar Deen, and the Azawad groups. And this is wrong. Because you have to remember what I exposed. An insider who came out from the Pentagon said that the motive of the Americans in Africa is what? To fight Salafia. And if you understand what this means, the Muslims understand this, the Salafist, meaning you are following the fundamental principles of Islam from the Prophet ﷺ, and for the first 3 generations, then the next generations after that. This is Salafia. They want to fight that. And it's working to a major degree, especially in North Africa, where we have now people who say they're Muslims who don't pray. The Americans say, no, it's okay. They've changed even the meaning of the Quran. We have Muslims who say, backing by the Tubab, who come in and tell them, no, we're telling you, you can pray on Friday and it's all, and that's all. You don't need to pray anymore after that. We have these type of changes to Islam because their job is to fight Salafia. They do not want to see you, me, worshiping Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They really want us to do like the Christians do inside the United States in Africa, to put on our walls a white Jesus Christ and go and bow down to that because it's in their image. This is what they want. They don't want us bowing down like the prophets of old to Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't want us to go and to follow the sunnah of another black man who is the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, he's not Tubab, as many Tubab have tried to say, many racist Arabs tried to make it as though the Prophet ﷺ was white-skinned. He was not. And we have eyewitness to this by one of our famous Islamic scholars of old. And his book is a long title about the superiority of the blacks over the whites. He wrote this in the 8th century. He was second generations removed from the Prophet ﷺ, but he knew of their heritage, and he wrote in a book about the Prophet ﷺ. He said that his line, his father was jet black in color. Now, I'm sorry, brothers and sisters, jet black people don't produce white folks with blonde hair and blue eyes. So we get that notion out. Our Prophet ﷺ is considered an Afro-Arab because he spoke Arabic, and he made it to the definition that he gave by the Arabs. He said those who speak the Arabic language. He didn't say by the color, because at that time in Saudi Arabia, because even Saudi has something to do with the color of the skin, blackness. Saudi Arabia, meaning the darkness, the blackness of the skin. That's right, brothers and sisters. Okay. So I got off a little tangent, but I'm just trying to make a point. And so this new union is doomed to fail if the Tubab forces can permeate in their lands, making it tougher to negotiate. Because when the Fulani herdsmen want to come to the table, the Ansar Deen wants to come to the table, the Azawad groups want to come to the table, these other groups or our governments want to bring the Tubab with them. You can't negotiate like that. As you heard me say, this should be an African negotiation. And we need our scholars to be in between there to mediate, because it's them who they are the experts on the Quranic law and the sunnah of our Prophet, alayhi salatu salam. So when their presence is there, see, then it makes it almost impossible to negotiate. The American forces negates their progress. Surely they will sow seeds of deceit in the land. We know what the Americans do. We know what the Europeans and the French do. They form deceit, and they have many things that they do. They introduce, whoredom and all kinds of things. And I had an article. I was going to bring it up, but I don't have time for that at this time. Human trafficking, brothers and sisters. Let me tell you something. You heard me talk about this. We still have slavery going on in the Sahel in West Africa. And we need to do something about it, because there was a article written of these Tubabs who came in here, and they had all of these children they had stole to enslaved from Chad. They were putting them on an airplane to take them into Europe. Some said they were going to be killed for their organs, for kidneys, for their hearts, and all that kind of stuff, because they've been doing that. But somehow or another, the flight landed because it had problems, and the police found all of these Chadian children. Brothers and sisters, you see what I'm talking about, why, and the Tubab gets very angry because he said we're not supposed to talk against him. But why we want them out? Because this kind of stuff. They took all these children from Chad. It's lucky they landed in an area where there was a lot of police, because they were landed in the Sahel, in the regions where the Fulani herdsmen or the Messina group or the Azawad group or the other groups of militias, they would have executed the bastards. They would have executed them. And rightfully so. So this has to be quelled. I believe that the Sahel corridor of Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger are steps away from developing the Islamic Emirate. This is the reason the Americans want to prevent any progress that would negate what? Their power in the region. There's an article written talking about the aim where the Europeans and Americans are now going back to want to formulate again how to steal our resources. Because if they take all our resources, we can't enrich ourselves. This is not a good partner. It's not a good partner. So they're developing this new system now to come in to harvest our resources to take it from us. And if you remember right, the first of the plots happened when Mansa Musa, remember him? We had all the gold. The Europeans came and saw his riches and began to formulate devilish plans to steal all the gold out of Mali. It started way back, brothers and sisters, way back. And the Europeans, the Tubab, have been at this for all these hundreds of years because they became rich because of it, especially Europe. The new Sahelian axis must negotiate with the Mujahideen groups. I can't stress that even more, brothers and sisters. I don't care if these groups are wayward or not. We have to bring our brothers. They're Africans. They're not aliens from Mars or from Pluto or some other planet. They are Africans. They are on this continent. They have ancestors on this continent. They're your brothers. We should negotiate with them. This is the Islamic way to do it. Not bring the Tubab and let him put military and then he goes and bombs our Fulani herdsmen. That's not the way it's supposed to be. No African leader should use any Tubab to kill another brother. Bottom line. And we should negotiate. And when we do negotiate, we have the government officials. Perhaps they're not wise. We understand because they're militarily trained by the Tubab mainly. They're not trained in Sharia law, but our scholars are. And we start to see, because the Nigerian president started something, we have to give him his kudos by sending the ulama into Niger to negotiate. This is the way it should be done, brothers and sisters. This is the way it's done by our ancestors in previous centuries. We always brought in our ulama and fuqaha to come in to mediate. And they mediated with what? The Quran. Because that's the language that we all speak. And we need to do this again. The Niger supposedly is allowing the U.S. to carry on their crusading activities in Niger. You heard me say that this is disgraceful. How can Niger government allow this? We have to ask that. Because look at this, brothers and sisters, the logic behind this. The ECOWAS is run by the Americans. The ECOWAS is waiting for the approval of the Americans that they can invade Niger. Niger said, okay, and Americans are supposed to assist the ECOWAS. How can the new Niger government allow the Americans to stay put inside the country? It's giving them a foothold right there so they can help ECOWAS to overthrow our brothers in the new, our House of Brothers who are running the show now in Niger. So how can they allow the American military presence there? They cannot. Because ECOWAS and the Americans have a mithaq, an agreement. See? And this is why it doesn't make sense. And on top of that, the Americans negotiated with the Niger government to allow American-trained generals who have been overthrowing many of the governments. American-trained what? Generals. See, this is bad news. Brothers and sisters, I have to talk about this because our brother made a good point at the UN. And this is his quote. He said, Africa is suffering from a governance model that has been imposed on it. A model that is good and effective for the West, but is difficult to adapt to our realities, our customs, and environment. Well said, my dear brother. This is the president of Guinea, Conakry. And he said it perfectly. See, and this is something that we should applaud our brother to get up on the international stage at the UN and make this comment. And he went on to say, it is time to stop lecturing us and stop treating us with condescending like they're children. He said, adding that Africans were mature enough to design their own models of governance. This is why I said the Islamic governance is going to come. Because once we do that, we follow the footsteps of our ancestral brothers of the Messina group, of the Sokoto, the Mali, the Tukular, you name it, the Hausa empires, all of these, the Mandinka, all of these empires, all these famous leaders, Samari Turi, Idris Aloma, all of our ancestral brothers who were sultans. We go back to governing what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala orders us to do, we will take off. Because once we come under Sharia law, all the resources belong to the people. Yes, we will negotiate prices with the Russians. We'll negotiate the prices with the Chinese and all others, and we will sell it at market value. And we will enrich our people. This is what our African leaders done in the past. I'm talking about before the colonial period. And he made poignant statements. And I'm glad to see that. And our brother, I like his speech better than most. There's some others who talked harsh as well. We have one sister from the Barbados in the West Indies. She talked also very, very rough with the West. We had our Ghanaian president talk very harsh against the UN and its bodies. So we had African leaders who are complaining now on international stage because their voice is not heard. Now they go to the international stage of the UN and they spoke. And I was proud of them for stepping up. But now we have to put those words into action. Because brothers and sisters, we have serious problems. Because this is a problem, brothers and sisters. Okay, this is a problem because anytime you deal with disbelievers, the Prophet ﷺ will never have allowed this. Usman bin Fodio would have never allowed this. Omar Dao would have never allowed this. Our beautiful scholars, Ahmed Baba Sudani, would have never allowed this, and he would never give a fatwa allowing for the Tubab and a disbeliever to come to train African Muslims or train in any African land or in the land of the Muslims, in Bilad es Sudan, meaning the land of black folk. You heard me, my speech talk about that. And this is a problem that we have to quell. We got to do something about this. Because this here, minute you put your hands and you go with the devil, this is what happens. This is these people leading our African brothers, impressionable, poor African brothers, to slaughter Fulani herdsmen. And this is what we have to do something to stop that. This union, brothers and sisters, okay, of the wicked Tubab and and our African forces produced this. See, that's why I said, brothers and sisters, you have to look at this for what it is. You get mad at your African Fulani brothers. You get mad with your Hausa brothers because they resort to the gun, to the riddle of steel, to the AK-47. Why? Because his motive is to wipe out Islam through the continent. West Africa has been a beacon of Islamic governance and excellence since the 700s. You heard me talk about, especially the Fulani jihad has been going on from the 700s to the present. And we have all these massacres that are going on. And the latest massacres have been by the Russians that aided the African forces. You heard me get a class on that. But their presence, and because what they're advocating, because they're disbelievers and we understand Sharia law, produced these kind of people. This brother here, Sheikh Yahya, he's a commander of one of the Fulani herdsman group. And so this is what we have never, ever underestimate what has happened. This brother, this Sheikh Islam, didn't wake up one morning and decide to fight. They were forced to fight because our governments allowed this. And they began to kill Fulani kinfolk. This is why we have to bring brothers like this to negotiate with our Fulani brothers and our Tuareg brothers and our Afro-Arab brothers, and negotiate with them to bring them to the table. And we can't negotiate when we have the presence of a Tubab. It can't happen because they're disbelievers. And the Prophet ﷺ never said at the table, yes, when he negotiated with the Tubab, yes, he negotiated directly with them, with the Romans, okay, at the time. But he never had them come to sit down in meetings with his people when he was making laws and there were disputes. No Tubab came to the Prophet ﷺ and ordered him to do anything. No Tubab came to Mansa Musa and ordered him to do anything. No Tubab ordered Omar Dal to do anything. No Tubab came to Idris Aloma and told him anything. No Tubab came to Samari Turi. He fought them 20 years before he was betrayed by his own African brothers, and that's how they defeated the Mandinka small immigrants that they developed. He didn't listen to them. Okay, so we go all the way down the line. All these brilliant African ancestral brothers didn't allow this to take place under their sultanates. So we have to bring our African leaders like this have to bring forth effort to negotiate. Throw the Tubab out. Throw their militaries out. You already threw the French. Why you throw the French out and you allow the Americans? The Americans have been helping with the French to overthrow our black brothers. So why you keep the devil in your lands? You should throw the bastards out. That's the only way you're going to be able to be free, because they're going to overthrow you. And they're going to train people like these young brothers here, no education. They only know what is in their pocket. They only know the Tubab. And so when the Tubab trains him and the others like him, they will overthrow the government and they'll put this man in power. This man will be Simata'a on the Amr. I'm speaking Arabic, excuse me. He will listen and obey the command of this Tubab. This is why this is a dangerous situation in Niger in particular. Our brothers have to go back to the table and negotiate. Negotiate with these brothers. And we bring our scholarly body to go in between to negotiate. This axis that's developed between our brothers, they have to do this, brothers and sisters. They must do this. They must negotiate with our African brothers and stop having the Tubab come in to kill them. That's not right. As you heard me talk, they are asking for freedom, and yet they appoint U.S. trained military officers to key positions. That's incredible, isn't it? You think about that. That's incredible. And the proof also, the U.S. resumes flight operations in Niger. This is just recently, a couple of weeks ago. Now it was exposed. So how can our Niger brother who's in the center, who's Hausa, allow for this operation to go in his land? He wants freedom, he says. He wants to be independent. He wants to have Niger to be governed by Niger. And yet he's got these people there in his land. to fight our brothers here, Fulani brothers, who went to jihad because they're fighting the Tubab and they're fighting the hypocrites who are trained by the Tubab. Because this is what has been the undermining factor, brothers and sisters. The ethnic killings by the West African armies. Who is training the West African armies? See, and they're targeting Fulani herdsmen. You heard me say this many times. Ethnic killings have what caused this? Who's behind the ethnic killings? Yes, the Africans are doing it on the behest of the Europeans, because the Fulani herdsmen are descendants of a jihad from the 700s. And because they're killing Fulani people outright, they produced Sheikh Yahya here. You see what has happened? Because of, yes, we went from one extreme, from the Tuba extreme, from their devilishness to kill Africans outright, to kill Fulani herdsmen outright. They produced people like this. See, so as again, I'm giving you facts to this because it's important that we have the right information. Because when you look at pictures like this, you want to get mad and say, well, why this brother here? Why Sheikh Yahya here of a militia of the Fulani group? Why Sheikh Yahya Amir is his name? So why did he do this? He did it because of the presence and the wickedness of this. And our African young brothers like this went to go kill his kinfolk. And it produced this type of man who took to the AK-47 in jihad. So now you get a better picture on why I said what this agreement means. This agreement means that we have a lot of work to do. And we must negotiate with our brothers here, like this here, because the Fulani herdsmen are not going away. Messina group is not going away. The Azawad group is not going away. And all the Fulani militias and everything is all the way across into Niger, now in part of Chad. So we have all of these things, brothers and sisters, that's going on. And I'm hoping that you get the picture and what I've been saying here, because it's important, brothers and sisters, that we get a full picture on what's going on in the Sahel. Not a half picture that I see on many programs. I was watching programs yesterday. They gave everything again. It's always the AQ and IS. You heard me talk against this for weeks upon weeks. Every time these non-Muslims and Muslims don't understand the Sahel, they get involved. They always say that you, me, who Fulani, or we're all belong to the AQ, or we all belong to the IS. That is absolute nonsense and it's BS. I don't belong to the AQ. I don't belong to IS. And I've said it, and I've said it again. And I will iterate it here again. This is belonging to us. They have no damn business being here. Go back to Jazeera Arab. I'm saying it to the AQ and to IS. Go back to Jazeera Arab. That's where you belong. Our fight here is in the Sahel. We have water rights. We have land. We have negotiation. We have problems between the Hausa and the Fulani. What the hell does that have to do with the Islamic groups of IS and the AQ? Nothing. You see? And also, the Tuba has no right. He's been here 400 years, yes, but he has no right to be here because he's not negotiating. He's stealing from us and he's killing us. You heard me talk about they just found a flight of children. They stole from Chad, and the plane didn't crash. It landed, and luckily the police got there and got men and arrested them, because they wouldn't went into the hands of Fulani herdsmen, or they would have went to the Azawad group or something like the Azawad group and part of Fulanis. They killed those guys here about 5 years ago in the Mali desert. They were, again, human trafficking, brothers and sisters, human trafficking of Fulani in particular, and some other groups too. Okay, doggone it. I forgot now who's been hit hard by these. There's a lot of other smaller ethnic groups who don't have military wings or militias. They've been taking the women in particular out from the region and sending them into Jazir Arab. Jazir Arab means the Middle East, and then into Europe. This trafficking is a multi-million-dollar business, brothers and sisters, and it hasn't stopped. And the Tubab is running it. He is not stopping to enslave us. These brothers here have to put their foot down and go and have soldiers and negotiate with mujahideen to catch these bastards and execute them, not bring them before the court. Go and rescue our sisters who have been raped by these Tubab and been manhandled and ravaged by the Tubab. These, I'm talking about the criminals, okay, who's doing this trafficking. Get them and execute them. That's the only way we're going to stop this, because the Tubab is not going to stop taking black faces out of Africa. He's not. So we have to stop thinking that he's going to be benevolent towards us. He's going to accept Islam. The Prophet ﷺ talked about the big war that's going to take place between the Muslims and the Christians. And we're going to end these bastards once and for all. It's going to happen. It's not going to be in my lifetime, most likely. But we have this big war. It's going to happen between the Muslims and the Christians. And it's going to be the Americans and the Europeans. So we're going to get rid of these bastards once and for all. So, brothers and sisters, you heard me talk again harsh, but we have to, because this is not a child's game. Okay, this is not a child's game, brothers and sisters, and we have to be made to understand the significance of this pact. And you got this from your brother today, and I'm going to talk harsh about it, because as you heard me say, I don't like interlopers here in our lands. If the interlopers come, I'm not talking about tourism, brothers and sisters. I'm not talking about the common Tubab who come in who want to see the sights. I'm not talking with them, because as a Muslim, we cannot hurt them. You heard me talk many times about the 4 categories of disbelievers. We just can't go, young couple comes in from Los Angeles, California. They want to come to Morocco to visit and see the sights. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as they obey the laws and customs, there's nothing wrong with that. We're talking about the criminal element. We're talking about the criminal element who does this type of stuff like this. This is a criminal element, because they're training these people to fight other Africans and Muslims, and it's wrong, because these Muslims want to have the right governance in order to empower the people. And again, this has produced that, because of the extremism on one side to the left here from the Tubab and the criminals, those criminals, not the tourists who come here, who abide by the laws and who do nothing to Muslims. And it produced people like this. So we have to look at it for what it is. And we hope that our brothers will start something new, where maybe ECOWAS be broken up and started anew, where they have been running the show, and we don't have the Americans who are sitting over in the back of them, ordering them what to do and what to say. But we're going to have to do something, because this union, this pact is a good thing, brothers and sisters. But this is not. This is a dangerous precedent. This is a very, very dangerous precedent that has to be done. This is a dangerous precedent when the Niger junta, the new government, is allowed U.S. military officers. They're going to be reporting to the Pentagon on every move that our brother here in the center is making. Every move that they're doing, they're going to be reporting to the Americans. He should not have put those generals into power, because now he's got one foot in, one foot out. They're ready to overthrow him at any moment. Our brother here, Burkina Faso, who's running the show there, they tried to overthrow him here not too many months ago. They found out the plot. Who was instrumental of that? It's a Tubab. Now they're going to go after our brother in the center here, who's Hausa. See, so we have to look at it for what it is, and we have to break this cycle. Our brother from Guinea, Conakry, the president here, who said about the Western democracy, and he talked about how this is a detriment to us. You've been hearing me talk about it. Many say you probably crazy. You know, why you talk like this? We have young leaders and know they see the destructive nature of the democracy, what has happened. And under this democracy, we have all of these coups and everything happen. We have all poorness. What is democracy done for Niger? We have people eating out of trash cans, brothers and sisters. We have people in Niger who are drinking squalid water. We have people still living in huts like in the 17th century because the wealth has not been passed down. And then on top of that, we have this. We have ethnic killings by West African armies. And we heard again, Ghana is back at its old tricks again against the Fulani. What they've done to the Fulani herdsmen and their families who was trying to escape the carnage was happening in Burkina Faso. They came into Ghana and they got arrested, and many are sent back to be killed because the ethnic groups there are after the Fulani. And that was recently exposed. That's another story in itself. But the ethnic killings, brothers and sisters, is a big, big, big issue. And you know who's behind this, who's being supported and armed by who? This type of situation here. And again, they produced a Fulani herdsman like this, who perhaps is extreme in judgment and in retaliation because of the extreme nature of how his family was dealt with by the Tubab and by the hypocrites, Africans, who are going on their commands. So we have two extremes. We have one to the left. We have the disbelievers and the hypocrites who are going by their Amr. And then we have the extreme on the side here, where we have brothers that took now to jihad, and they have been very vicious in their retaliation. See, so, and we need our leaders here to come to negotiate with them and bring our scholars to do it. So, brothers and sisters, I'm hoping that you get the picture of what has happened here on this beautiful agreement that these three brothers have, but we have flaws in it. You heard me talk about the flaws, and perhaps you may not get this from others. I'm going to get deep down into the situation to give it to you the best way I see it, with evidence I can give you. And so this is why it's important that we support our brothers. Yes, they're not Islamic, but that's going to happen. Okay, especially when our scholars begin to come in, negotiate. They get in between our government brothers here and our mujahideen groups, and get in between there to bring them to the table to negotiate. We can bring peace, and it's going to happen. And I'm hoping it's going to happen soon. I want to see this happen. So, brothers and sisters, we oh boy, yes, sir. Here we go again. I see here. It's always we have. Okay, brothers and sisters, I had this difficulty here. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I've had interference. You know what's happening. How I have my enemies, and they break through the computer and they do a lot of things to cause problems in my feed because I'm not a supporter of them. So they try to do this. In the past, they used to send. I should show you the pictures of the filthy pictures they send to me. Okay, it's absolute, and they always send me black women. They used to send me Russian women naked. Now they send me black women and some they show sexual, acts going on. But and I've complained bitterly to YouTube in particular to stop this type of madness. So, brothers and sisters, I'm hoping that you got something out of this today. And if you like your brother's talk, please subscribe and pass this tape. I do appreciate it. Again, you heard me say I will never ask for any money. I don't believe that I should ask you for anything. I don't want that. Only thing I want is your support, and that you take what I have on Africa and you run with it and whatnot, and keep you abreast on what your brothers and sisters are doing, especially in the Sahel region in West Africa, and our Muslim brothers and sisters as well, because I'm going to give you the breakdown. When something happened, when I get a hold of it, I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look deep into it, and then I'll give you my synopsis of it, so that way you can get a better picture, because you're not going to be able to get this because, as you say, you look at every article, every time they show something of a Fulani like me or anybody else, we always the AQ, and that's not true. How you doing, my dear brother Nazreen? How you doing, my dear brother? Thank you very much. Yes, I try to keep you informed, and I'm not going to give you the Western version or the sanitized version. I'm going to give you what it is. You heard me talk. I gave you the link between the Tubab forces in the Sahel and between the Mujahideen group, how they were produced and how they were created. We have two extremes going on one side. Left side, the disbelievers, and the right side, we have Mujahideen groups. Both are extreme in their retaliation and their motives, their MO. That both of them are extreme and their thing. You heard me say also in the agreement that's between Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the AQ and IS have no business being there at all, and they should get the hell out, because this is not their land. Yes, they got Africans to help in this, but IS and AQ should go back to Jazeera R. That's where they're at. They have nothing to do with the Fulani herdsmen. They have nothing to do with the Messina group. They have nothing to do with the Azawad or the Ansar Dine, the Afro-Arabs and Afro-Tuaregs. None of that. We have specific problems here. We want to deal with our brothers and their governments. We don't want the AQ. We don't need the IS. We don't need them to come here to bomb our kinfolk. We don't need them to be plotting to do away with others. We don't want that. So you heard me talk about, and I gave you that analysis, because when the Tubab comes to fight me, he claims I'm part of AQ, I'm part of IS, which is because this is what they want to do. So that way they have the right to kill me. And they say, we had to do this to Yahya because he's part of AQ. It's a lie. I'm Fulani. I'm not from Syria or Lebanon or any other place like this. My kinfolk are from the Sahel and West Africa. Okay, so I'm Fulani and Mendika, Mende. I went through my heritage. I have a lot of different heritages, and Amazigh from Morocco. So my heritage is here. I'm not from the AQ. I don't adopt their philosophy nor the philosophy of IS. No, Fulani Muslims, or House of Muslims, all of us, we have a different mentality on that, because this is our land and our kinfolk. We're not here to go and bomb them. We don't want to do that, but we do have some doing that. We have some of our wayward brothers join those groups, but they should not join those groups. That's why you heard me talk vehemently against that. And they're not supported by the Quran and the Kareem. So yes, I'm going to give it to you straight, and I'm hoping my brothers and sisters that will see this in the future will appreciate what I have to say, and will get something about it. They'll get a different version of this. I saw a program yesterday, the beautiful young sister, she gave something, talking about Niger. It was pretty good. And she was talking about some of the things. It was pretty good, but it was lacking in substance. She gave a roundabout thing, but then made a mistake by then lumping Fulani herdsmen and the Messina group and others like this by mentioning the fact about the AQ and IS, because she's got her news from the Americans and the Europeans. And that's where I said, no, sister, you're wrong. She was doing beautifully. When she introduced that, I said, no, sister, you're wrong. The Fulani herdsmen are not IS or AQ. That's not the case. So, okay, my brothers and sisters, I will leave you with those my talk today. And I'm hoping that you enjoy it. And those who see this in future, you want to subscribe, I really appreciate that, because you're going to get it straight from me. I'm not going to mince anything and hide anything. I'm going to give you what I see in my analysis. Okay, my dear brothers and sisters, and Anjarama, Salamu Alaikum, Rahmatullahi Barakatuh.